Good morning, my 8th graders. This is Miss Obregon, and today's lesson is titled Copyright or Copy Wrong. The objective for today's lesson is to understand the importance of copyright law, differentiate between copyright law, public domain, and fair use, correctly identify real-world examples of each, and then we will apply our knowledge of copyright law, public domain, and fair use to create real-world examples or scenarios for a final project. Some questions I would like to start off with is, have you ever experienced or heard of copyright law, for example, on YouTube? I know myself, I like to watch review videos on YouTube of different movies and series or shows that I watch. I've noticed that the creators have made comments that they are only allowed to use small video clips or sections of the movies and the shows that they are reviewing. They've stated that if they use too much of the show or the movie, then their videos are taken down for violating copyright laws. Have you ever seen this through YouTube? Why do you think learning about copyright laws is important? Keep these questions in mind as we go through the lesson. Why should you care about copyright laws? Well, ask yourself, if you created something and someone else used it, wouldn't you want them to give you credit for it? Also keep in mind that there are also legal reasons. Creators' works are protected by federal law. Today we will discuss how to ethically use content and materials for our own educational purposes. Some important concepts that we will be learning about today are copyright laws, the fair use doctrine, and public domain. So, what is copyright? Copyright is the legal protection of a person's original creative work. U.S. law protects a person's original work once it is created. Copyright laws require individuals to get permission from the creator to use their work. Some creators allow others to use their work under certain conditions, and we're going to be going over these conditions later on in today's lesson. So what does that mean for you? That means it is your responsibility to learn if copyright laws protect the images and content you want to use, and you need to make sure that you use them ethically and responsibly. The good thing is that there are ways that you can use content for educational purposes, such as for creating a presentation to demonstrate your learning. Intellectual property. So what is intellectual property? Well, copyright laws protect an individual's intellectual property. Intellectual property refers to artistic works created by an individual. Now, when we say artistic, we don't just mean someone like an artist. There are many different categories and types of intellectual property. Here are just a few examples. We have audio creations such as music, songs, and lyrics. All those are considered intellectual property and are protected by copyright laws. Some visual examples are paintings, photographs, movies, TV shows. All those are protected by copyright law. Now, there's even some technology that is considered intellectual property, such as computer programs, software, different apps. All those are considered intellectual property. And there's also some written literary works examples as well, such as books, plays, poems, even blog posts. Now, these are just a few examples of intellectual property that can be protected by copyright laws. This is not all of the different types of intellectual property that is protected. There are much more. Now, fair use. Fair use allows you to use materials and content that is protected by copyright laws, but you must use them under 4 conditions. The first is the amount. You can use a small amount of a creator's work. An example could be a quote from an article or a blog post, a video clip, or a part of a song. This goes back to the example that I gave you in the beginning of the presentation. The creators of the reviews, YouTube video reviews of different movies and shows, they're allowed to give only small video clips in their own videos of someone else's work. Now, the purpose. The purpose of using the content is also looked into when applying fair use. Content may be used for the following purposes: educational, news, research, and even criticism. You may not use someone else's content to profit from. The third condition is the nature. Works that are considered nonfiction and not necessarily creative, such as news and data, are not protected by copyright law. So you have to think about the nature of the content as well. Oftentimes, what is protected are creative works, not data, news, or information. One also has to look at the effect of using someone else's content. Using the work must not negatively affect the creator's original work itself. So you have to look as to the effect that using the work will have on that creator and on their work. Now we go into public domain. Copyright laws do not protect content and creative materials that are considered public domain. Therefore, anyone can use these materials without permission from the creator. There are 4 categories of materials and content that fall under public domain. 1, the copyright has expired, and copyright does expire after the span of the lifetime of the creator plus 70 years. So something like Shakespeare, the copyright would be considered expired. The creator has specified that it will fall under public domain and forfeits their copyright protection. Some material cannot be protected by copyright laws, such as title or small phrases. And also the 4th being, it was created before copyright laws. Again, think of some work like Shakespeare that was created before there were copyright laws. So any materials or content that was created before copyright laws is not protected by copyright and therefore considered public domain. So let's review. Remember that intellectual property is protected by copyright laws, and remember the different types of intellectual property that we talked about: music, movies, shows, work of fiction, poems, even blog posts or articles. Copyright laws protect an individual's creative works, So remember that these works or intellectual property is protected by federal U.S. law. Remember that FAIR doctrine allows for the use of materials that are protected by copyright law under 4 conditions: the amount, the purpose, the nature, and the effect. Now, good news for us is that there are some materials and content that can be used without the creator's permission under public domain. So you can search for material that is considered public domain from websites such as Creative Commons and Pixels.com, and you can use material that is under public domain without asking the permission of the creator for your presentations or for educational purposes. Now, remember that you can still use material if you do so under the 4 conditions of the fair use doctrine. Just remember that if you are using material under the fair use doctrine, you must cite that material and you must give credit to the creator. Remember that it is our responsibility as good digital citizens to make sure that we are using material and content ethically and responsibly. Thank you so much for listening, my 8th graders. And we are going to go ahead and move on to our activity. These are the references that I did use for today's presentation. Have a great day.